get a Hoover or a vacuum cleaner that would remove my brain fog or that would remove my thoughts. I get so many thoughts, I'm getting sick and tired of them. I don't know what to do. I get so many thoughts every day. Thoughts and thoughts and thoughts.
Imagine if you were faced with such a situation that people complain to you about having too many thoughts and not knowing what to do with them. Does it sound familiar? I hope not. Have we become so disconnected with the reality? Have we become so disconnected with the beginning, the purpose? Let me put it out clearly and plainly. Have we become so disconnected with the Quran? Have we become so disconnected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we don't even know the basics? Thoughts or waswasa, we don't know how to distinguish between them. There are already books and books and books and loads and loads and loads written about how to counter negative thoughts. And still, a marde momin or a Muslim has to go and shuffle through books written by the West about how to overcome negative thoughts. Seriously? As if Surah Falak and Surah Nas did not give you any lesson? The whispers of Shaitan don't ring any bell? It is very tiring and disappointing and very discouraging, honestly. I get very, very low in terms of the optimism. I try to tell myself there is still hope. I try to tell myself there is still hope. But when I come across people who fail at ABC, I ask myself, where do we stand and can we be revived? And the only answer I receive is that yes. If I look at the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, we are a dead ummah, but yes, we can be revived. Inshallah. Why? Because we are still here and breathing, and the heart is beating, and the mind is thinking. So there is still hope. We are still alive. We are still on earth. We can still revive ourselves. Maybe this is an autumn, maybe this is a winter, but there will be spring if we take care of this time and prepare. Thanks to social media, you all might be aware of the meaning of the word called procrastination. You might have heard it many times. And in case you don't know what it is just overthinking and not acting and not performing over the things that you have to do. You keep putting them off, you keep delaying them, and often people just end up doing their assignments or their job or their tasks right at the end of the deadline, like a day before, an hour before, a minute before. So this is called procrastination. And there is a procrastination pandemic, but it's just a matter of realization that this is not something new. This is something that is prevailing in our societies since the creation of Adam. It is not something that is, we can give it different terms, but this is something that is there and that has always been there. And it just is something that by giving it a fancy term, we are just giving it unnecessary importance. It's just the difference between action and inaction. It's just a decision between doing and not doing something. So what we have to do is there is a lot of focus thrown on this term, and it is almost dreaded, it's like a puzzling kind of a phenomena, or it's some kind of a disease, or it's just, I mean, I don't know if it is ever addressed appropriately, rather than taking it as an excuse, because we take fancy terms as excuses. Like these days, people have started taking a diagnosis of depression as a status symbol. People like to call themselves depressed, and they like to show that they are on antidepressants as if it is something fancy. So basically, procrastination is just a fancy term given again to putting off things till later. Just keep putting things off till later, keep putting things off till later. You're lazy, you're undisciplined, you're not mindful of your duties, you're irresponsible and irrational. And actually, these are all evils and vices that a good human being should not have. So a fancy, harmless term given to all these vices, again, just like comfort zone, is procrastination. On the contrary, if you look at the description of people who stayed behind, who prefer sitting, who are lazy, who are ghafil, who are mindless, who are heedless, there are pretty serious terms given in the Quran against those people. So you cannot hide behind this curtain of fancy terminology and think that you're safe, because you're not. Because if, may Allah forbid, the house is on fire, the curtains will also burn. These fancy terms will not protect anyone or give anybody any insurance. This is not, fancy terms are not insurance policies to protect you from disaster. Please write that down. Fancy terminology or psychological fancy words, terms, these are not insurance policies that will save you or show up when you become, may Allah forbid, a disaster, or when you destroy your life, may Allah forbid. And you're not only destroying your life, in this world, we are connected in a network. Since the time of birth, we are all connected in a network. Whatever we do has consequences. Even our shadow is either giving somebody a shade, or we can even decide how to not benefit somebody from our own shadows. So everything related to us can be a source of benefit or harm. Benefit or harm. And we are connected in a network. We cannot go solo. Just like there is no YOLO, there is no solo in this life. We have to survive as a tribe, we have to survive as a community, and we have to live and think like an ummah. We have to think like a community. We have to think like a group of people and not just individually. We cannot be selfish. We cannot be self-centered. We have to be selfless. So a true Muslim, somebody who's God conscious, somebody who says or claims, especially the person who claims that they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they cannot afford to be an idol worshiper. So in Islamic theology, idol worshipper, the other one, the other person who's an idol worshipper is somebody who actually worships somebody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is also this form of idol worshipper who worships his own desires. So the other idol, the IDLE, the not doing anything worshipper, is also an IDOL, idol worshipper, because he's following his own comfort zone, following his own or her own desire of not doing anything, of not taking action. So the people who have been really seriously pointed out or pointed at in the Quran are those who are heedless, mindless, and ghafil, and who love sitting back. And in fact, it has been mentioned that they stick to the ground even harder when they're told to stand up. They stick to the ground when they're told to stand up. And the word qaid is, in the Arab world, is a word that is referred to as somebody who's retired. So Muslim cannot have a retired mindset before actually coming to a state in which they are totally crippled, may Allah forbid, or they're unable to function, or their functionality, their body and mental capacities are diminished for some reason. But as long as they have the capacity, as long as Allah has given them the capacity, the power, the mind and body, they are able-bodied, they should be fully functional human beings, and they should try and serve Allah with every atom that is present in their bodies, in their existence. In Surah Takasur, Allah Ta'ala has told us, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, competition in worldly life, in worldly increase, diverts you. We could also read it as competition in the worldly increase distracts you until you visit your own graves. Competition in the worldly increase distracts you till you reach your own graves. Alhaakumut takasur hatta zurtumul makabir. So procrastination has to be taken care of. We cannot keep putting things off till we reach our graves. And how do we do that? One of the biggest reasons for procrastination is a person's hesitation in taking an action. There are many reasons, and we will come to them separately. One of the main reasons, other than being overthinking, is not knowing the results. But that is how the world is designed. We do not know what is going to be the result of whatever we do. And this is why most people are incapable of taking action, because they have analysis paralysis. Now, a believer, a God-conscious person, should not, ideally, a God-conscious person should not have analysis paralysis, because not knowing the outcome is the default. But do we really not know the outcome? Or have we not learned the proper definitions or the proper religious philosophy that Islam has to offer? What is the meaning of success, for example? How do we perceive success? Where do we take the definition of success from? According to Islam, according to the teachings of Quran and Sunnah, we know that a person with patches on his clothes and no shoes in his feet could be the richest man when it comes to his deeds, could be the most honorable man in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is what matters the most. But in the worldly sense, we might perceive that person as a poor person, as a deprived person, as a bechara, as a mehroom. That man, as long as Allah is happy with that person, is not at all a person who is deprived or mehroom. So, now, if we ask ourselves, do we really not know the consequence? Do we really not know the outcome of our actions? We know the outcome of our actions. But we are again and again trapped in the net of deception of Shaitan, who keeps highlighting in our heads the apparent, and keeps taking our minds away, keeps distracting us from the reality, from the fact that all that glitters is not gold. All that meets the eye is not true. It's just an illusion. It could be just fake. Shaitan owns the biggest propaganda creating or generating factory in the world, in the universe. Shaitan owns the greatest propaganda generating technology or factory, and the best place to use that is our minds. Shaitan likes to create different kinds of delusions in our minds, and he makes us believe in things that are not real and in things that are not profitable in the long run. So the whispers are propaganda against life, akhirah, religions, against God, against human beings themselves. And Shaitan keeps inoculating, keeps polluting our imagination, keeps clouding our judgments. And one must be very careful not to incline, not to tilt towards Shaitan and the whispers of Shaitan. And how do you prevent that? You prevent that if you are anchored in the book of Allah, if you're anchored in your taqwa, if you're anchored in your consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are many ways of being anchored in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will come to that at a later point, inshallah. We will be covering all these points separately. But for now, imagine that the greatest killer of action and the greatest supporter of procrastination is the fact that Shaitan makes us believe that we have forever, we have all the time in the world. But the reality is that there is a deadline. And the deadline is called a deadline because after the deadline, everything is dead and there is no line. So we have to know what is our deadline. And by our deadline, I mean the grave, the ultimate departure from this dunya. So how do we feel safe? And how do we feel that we have forever when every single person has a different deadline, has a different time of death? And how do we know that how much time we have left? So the only person who can afford to procrastinate is the person who knows when they are going to die. And I don't think there is anybody who exists right now who would be able to give an exact date and time stamp for the time that they are going to die. So just imagine that there is a MasterChef competition and everyone is busy. Everyone is busy and they're worried and they're busy and they don't have time to talk to anyone. And there's a lot of tension in the room. There's a lot of tension in the kitchen because everyone is busy working. Nobody even has the time to look at what the other person is cooking because their time is running out. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. So why are they so stressed? And now imagine the stress level when they don't even know when their time is going to be up. Usually in the MasterChef competitions that we see on television, there is a similar time limit for everyone. If you get 1 hour, 2 hours, everyone gets 1 hour or 2 hours. Everyone gets the same time, the same amount of time to create 1 or 2 dishes. But this is a unique MasterChef competition in which every single person has a different time limit, and on top of that, nobody knows when the bell will ring and their time will be up. Everybody has a different bell, and the bell will ring on different occasions that nobody has been told when. So how are they going to be judged? If their time limits are all different, how are they going to be judged? When the time limits are different, then they're going to be judged on the performance per minute. They're going to be judged on the performance per minute. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has spoken about and spoken so highly about people who remember Allah standing, sitting and lying down. There are people who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala standing, sitting and lying down. They don't waste time. And there was a Sahabi who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he was told by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that make sure that your tongue is always busy in the zikr of Allah. And why not? Why shouldn't we be busy in remembering Allah all the time when Allah is so great that He pays that remembrance back so beautifully by remembering us and remembering us in a better gathering, in a higher group of people or company? Why shouldn't we become people of zikr? Why shouldn't we become people who exert ourselves all the time? Performance per minute. Why shouldn't we focus on performance per minute? Now that we are at the brink of the new year that we follow in this dunya, because everybody else is following it. So we are at the brink of that. And many of us is going to make New Year's resolutions. So are you going to make a yearly plan? Are you going to make a monthly plan? Are you going to make a weekly plan? Are you going to make a daily plan? Or are you going to make an hourly or a minutely plan? Are you going to be the people of performance per minute? Because nobody knows how many minutes or how many hours or how many days or how many weeks or how many months of this new year you have left. So shouldn't this create a sense of urgency in a human being, not knowing the deadline at all, and yet being told to do your best and earn the highest ranks? Shouldn't that create a sense of urgency in every human being? Where is the room for any kind of procrastination? Where is the room for any kind of laziness? Where is the room for any kind of indecisiveness? Where is the room for any kind of overthinking? There is no room. So this is one biggest trick that probably Shaitan has trapped in, so many people into. So many people have been trapped into this trick of Shaitan that we may have forever, but we don't. So many people die, and they die at different ages, and nobody knows when anyone is going to die. I don't know when I'm going to die. I don't even know. There's so many scholars I was reading just to prepare this talk or to prepare one of my other important lectures. And I noticed that most of them died before reaching the age of 50. So what is the guarantee? Where is the guarantee? Where is any kind of certificate that you will live to a certain age? Or you have this many number of minutes or hours or days or weeks or months ahead of you. Nobody knows how much time they're given, but everyone knows the task. Nobody knows the time limit. Nobody knows the deadline, but everyone knows the task. So when you know the task and you don't know the deadline, then the urgency increases. When you know the task, but you don't know the deadline, then the urgency should increase. Do you know or feel the urgency?